Hey all, here are OS Reviews. In this video, we're taking a quick look at the Hohem iSteady V3. It's their most advanced model yet, and it comes with features including AI tracking. So there is a camera on the front that is built into the gimbal itself that will detect your face and always point towards you. It can replace someone shooting, for example. It works in both portrait and vertical orientations, and of course the whole point of a gimbal is to make your footage a lot more steady. So if you're holding it as you're vlogging or running around, it's going to feel like you're recording it on a crane or on some type of track, as it mitigates the shakes using the built-in 3-axis motor. This model is also kind of unique because it comes with a detachable remote that is charged when you pop it inside of the gimbal's base. It's using pogo magnetic contacts, recording and stopping video as well as taking images, since the device might be a little bit further away from your hands once you pop it on there, especially in the tripod mode. So there is a kind of selfie stick that's now built into this particular generation, allowing you to extend the phone further up, which was a feature missing on all of the previous models. So it's kind of a two-in-one design this time. This generation even comes with a retractable feet that can collapse as well as extend outwards, helping it stand up onto a table even if you don't have an extra tripod with you. Pretty neat, a lot of these small moving components, and also having a LED fill light onto the camera part for tracking your face as well, that you can use for better illuminating yourself when you're capturing in darker environments. And just like before, it works with their companion app if you want to download even more pre-programmed templates, different rotational effects that uses the motors to kind of twist and pulse, giving you some cool animations as you're shooting, as well as for editing the video footage as well. But you can always do that using a different software if you want to, and just use the gimbal as is. It's still going to be very compact. It claims to be as small as a can of Coke, which is actually pretty impressive. The gimbal itself comes in two colors, black and white. It will last around 11 hours in a simple gimbal mode to mitigate shakiness, and around 4 to 6 hours if you have the AI tracking and the fill light turned on. And even though iPhones tend to already have very good video recording capability, I would say this just makes the footage extra buttery and smooth. But the difference will be biggest on maybe mid-range phones if it doesn't have optical image stabilization. Some devices only have EIS. When you pair it with a gimbal, it's going to make the biggest improvement when it comes to stableness of the video footage. By the way, this generation will retail at $130, so it's not the cheapest gimbal on the market, but again, it is one of the most advanced when it comes to features. You also find a USB Type-C charging cable as well as a soft carrying pouch. Quick look at the construction and build. It does feel very solid despite being made out of plastic. There's a definite heft to it, and the entire thing kind of locks into place securely when you have it folded down, but you can just simply fold it upwards and kind of be up and running. The very top compartment, which is spring assisted, is where you can pull on the tab to pop in your phone. Again, it's universal. It will work with pretty much any Android or iOS device. And then the top fill light with the camera, by the way, doesn't really take photos. It's only used for tracking your face. This module can actually be removed just by tapping on the two orange keys on the side, and just pops off like so. It takes power from the gimbal using these pogo contacts and then just snaps itself into place. There's a dedicated power switch for this component as well that you can flick on and off manually. And then located further onto the base is where we'll find access to the power key as well as USB Type-C for charging. Again, the detachable remote, or you can just leave it on here, also is magnetic and uses pogo contacts. You can see a status LED on the inside here as well. Fits in pretty securely, and afterwards you're able to use a jog dial here for rotating the gimbal's motor here up, down, left, and right, as well as tap on a record button, as well as zoom controls as well. You even get a jog dial on the side, which by default will go into ISO customization, making your footage look brighter versus dimmer. At the very bottom, you find access to a standard tripod mount if you want to put it into a higher elevation, fixing its position there, as well as the aforementioned built-in kickstand feet. So this is constructed out of metal, and afterwards it can just lie flat like so and hold the entire position of the gimbal when you're onto a flat surface or desk, and then just use a little bit of force to lock the entire thing into place using magnets. On the very top here, we can actually pull to access the aforementioned selfie stick mode. The extension portion is constructed out of metal, feeling pretty robust and sturdy. Of course, it will still be super steady, even if your hands are slightly shaking as you are popping it above your head, for example. After we pop the phone into the holder, we can just turn the unit on. So you can tell how it's going to mitigate a lot of the shakiness that your hands will produce as you are moving around or walking, jogging, something like that. Now you can also tap on the mode key here twice to flip the orientation of the phone into the horizontal view. As you can tell there, it's a pretty smooth motion. The remote does have LED indication lights that allows you to gauge the status as you are popping it off. There's no additional connection that you have to set up between the remote and also the gimbal. It's pretty much automatic. We can also tap on the mode key once here to go through some of the other properties, including kind of a mode that just follows you around after a split-second delay, smoothing out some of the motion, versus a fixed position mode in which the left and right as well as up and down axes will all be locked. So even if I'm kind of turning my hand around, you can tell how the phone is still aimed at this one spot. The jog dial can also be long pressed for a couple of seconds to turn on the fill light. Afterwards, we can adjust the brightness of the fill light just by using the jog dial as well. So right now it's going to be brighter. We can also double tap on the arrow keys to change the color temperature from a warmer one versus colder, somewhere in between. As you can tell there, those are the three settings that you have. So overall, pretty easy to control, working well enough. Now the trigger key on the very back here can also be used to reset the position. So let's say you're trying to film and you've been kind of playing around with different special effects and it's ending in a slightly awkward position. You want to return back home, just double press there and it will recenter itself. You can also press on it 3 times to flip the position of the camera 180 degrees. So for example, tap on it 3 times, and now it's going to flip all the way here to the back. Now, when the red LED light here is on red, it actually means it's turned on and ready to be used for the tracking mode. If you actually turn it completely off using the switch on the side, the LED light here will turn off. As far as the gesture control using that camera is concerned, you can use a symbol like this to kind of initialize and go into the start mode of tracking you, and you can tell that the light there will also turn green. As long as you're not in a super crowded environment where there's a ton of faces around you, it should generally do a good enough job for just single vlog purposes. So as you can tell here, am I moving around left and right? It's actually moving with me. I can also try ducking maybe a little bit lower, and the position of the camera there has also moved lower. So it is pretty effective. It's kind of reminiscent of some of those smart AI control webcams that we have seen from Ozbot in the past that does a similar trick. And this might be useful as well if you have a maybe video conferencing tool that you've started up on your phone. Again, the AI tracking is done by the gimbal itself, so it doesn't have to communicate with the phone at all for it to operate. So you can start up something like Zoom or Hangouts, and it will always be following you around if you're trying to move or dance, doing something like that, so the other person can see it. Now you can also use the motion of a palm like this to stop the tracking, and again, this again to resume it. Plus you're able to trigger a flip between the landscape and portrait orientation just by using 2 thumbs up like this. You can also use a gesture like this using both hands to basically act as the virtual shutter key. So you can take a photo or begin a video based on your preferences, and also add another customized gesture using fingers like this that you can actually set up in the companion app to program to another function that you would like to set it to. So our companion app here is called Home Joy. There's a kind of an ad here for the V3 that pops up. We're going to click on Enter. Tap on Connect. After a split second later, we should be ready to go. Again, your default camera app on your phone will still do a all right job. It's just when you're paired, you're able to gauge the battery percentage on your phone for what is remaining in the gimbal, as well as customize the aforementioned gesture control. From here, we're also able to see that the Bluetooth icon is lit up on the remote, indicating that we are ready to go, and we can actually begin controlling video recording as well as taking photos directly on here now, and you can see that pop up correspondingly on the phone side. On this app, we're also able to jump into some more advanced settings in terms of changing the aspect ratio, whether you want grid composition to be turned on or off, white balance, as well as the motor speed can be adjusted in terms of how fast you want it to follow you around. We can also change the resolution of video up to 4K here on the app, as well as up to 60 FPS. Some beauty modes can also be played around with if you're taking vlogs pointing at you, as well as a couple of filters are built into the app as well. Now, some of the icons, as you can tell here, are still in Chinese, interestingly enough, on this Home Joy app. So it hasn't been completely translated yet. Hopefully that's something they can complete. You can just sort by a couple of different categories here as well. Slide left and right to go through some of the different modes here, including taking photos, as well as at the very bottom here, we are able to go into a panorama mode as well, so capturing a 120-degree shot. So if we tap on take, it will actually rotate the motor here towards the left and then take the first shot and then flip around ever so slightly and then stitch everything together in a more precise way. Looking pretty decent. And last but not least, we also have a moment tab at the very end of our list, which allows you to find the aforementioned template effects, including inception, as well as something called fantastic rotation. These are the same ones that we've been seeing on their prior generation gimbals as well, so it's not necessarily anything new. Dolly zoom, classic dolly zoom, but can still be pretty cool effects that just make your videos look a little bit more high quality and cinematic just by using some of these quick preset controls. So for example, if we take a inception video and we tap on start, it's going to be very similar to the panorama image in that it will kind of go into a preset position based on its programming, and after a couple of seconds it will flip over to the next position. It just gives you kind of a quick way of capturing kind of a fun clip, as you can tell there. So that's the finished result, as you can tell, looking a little bit more eye-catching. So just briefly scrolling through some of these effects, some of those templates also give you some layering on top, including some of the artificial rain droplets, time-lapse capture that will slowly pan the camera around while the time-lapse is capturing a frame every X seconds to capture something like a sunset, for example, that just looks a little bit more dynamic. And again, actually works quite well on this generation because you have that kickstand. If we take a final look here at their companion app, you'll also find the ability to go into an editor tab on the side, which allows you to stitch together some of the clips you've captured using the gimbal, using some of the built-in templates here that looks a little bit more professional. So if you're trying to do some very light editing, you don't need anything super fancy, you can just use some of these presets. It's consolidating a lot of those features into this one app, which is neat, I suppose. And again, not something super advanced or sophisticated, of course, but still fun to play with. And there's also a couple of other kind of community tabs available that shows some examples from other members that have shared their footage as a reference, and you can try and find out what settings they were on to replicate a similar feel. So there we have it. That's just a quick look at the Hohem iSteady V3. And I have to say that this generation is probably the biggest jump in terms of new features compared to the V1 to V2 was much more incremental. This time around, despite having a super compact footprint, we now have that built-in kickstand mode, as well as the detachable remote control, the fact that you can use it as kind of that selfie stick mode when you're extending the length of the arm, as well as, again, that magnetic fill light that also dubs as a auto tracking capability. Makes it a surprisingly versatile and convenient travel accessory if you are really into content creation. But despite all of these new added features, it's still collapsible and as compact as ever before, making it very easy to take with you when you're traveling or on the go. The only potential improvements to add, maybe in a V4, would be a lanyard strap so you can more firmly attach it onto your wrist when you're on the go, as well as perhaps a more specific battery percentage gauge on the remote, as well as maybe some power bank functionality that allows you to charge your phone when you're in a pinch as well. Really though, I have to say this V3 is definitely one of the best compact gimbals you can currently find here in 2024 from a feature perspective. You can learn more details if interested in the links down below. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. That's been the Hohem iSteady V3.